This is Three Brothers Movie Reviews, and we just watched Woman at War. It is an Icelandic drama film which follows a woman who is targeting a power line to try and shut down industry to a particular city near her. She's someone who is very much a tree hugger. There are sequences where she will literally put her face into plants in between. She loves the world, and at the same time, she is trying to adopt a daughter who is in Ukraine. And the film is about sisterhood. It is about this woman trying to explore like herself through nature, and it also has this band which is playing music which synchronizes with the soundtrack in the background. So this movie's weird. I guarantee you have not heard of it. But we saw it at the cinema where we see a lot of the midnight movies we watch, and
very obscure theater.
Yeah, we saw Anna and the Apocalypse there. And let me tell you, if Anna and the Apocalypse, we were laughing at like how many production logos there were. At least those had like intros that were all cool. Like this one just said with the association of this, that,
right.
that. Like
they even named individuals at one point. Like,
yeah.
And these guys helped us too.
Yeah. So, like this movie was cool. Like we didn't really have much that we were expecting going in. We were just like, let's.
Right.
The poster is really cool. It's so simple. Just her with the arrow, and you just see the power cables, and it just says, "Woman at War."
And and I saw that when we went to this theater recently, and we're like, this is like the first movie in a while where the poster sold me.
Yeah.
I didn't watch a trailer. I think I read one review.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And we were just like, we're game. You know, the poster looks interesting. It's
really
not overly
simple,
complicated.
really like good posters of like a lost art form. You never see them anymore.
Yeah. Stuff like Jaws. You know, it
You
was
get
nice
like the
when we saw that,
mosaic posters now with like a whole orgy of characters. You don't really get like simple and nice and fun posters.
It's nice that the poster can be a selling point, where oftentimes like you need a trailer or you need like something else. Like I can't remember the last movie I paid money to see simply because I loved the poster.
This is the one.
This is a good movie. This is a movie that I honestly expected it to be pretty, like I expected it to be really good at the beginning. Like you're gonna get the whole her and the arrow and shooting the power cables.
Opening scene is a ton of fun. It's shot really well, like great cinematography to show off, and then like you gotta keep going after that. Like you know, you can have that strong opening scene which clearly was the idea in the director's head.
Yes.
Like, and then after that you have to keep the plot going. So, and they do a good job. But like there's stuff about sisterhood, and there's stuff about motherhood in there. Like they incorporate themes in really well, and like I think the pacing is fairly consistent for the most part. They keep things interesting. So.
It gets a bit slow around the second act, but other than that, it has pretty consistent pacing.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part of this movie for me is something I think I've talked about in reviews before. This idea of what makes a female character strong.
Yeah.
And I think that this movie really has a good grasp on what makes this character Hala strong. She's someone that has basically been in the trenches doing her war against this particular industry in Iceland, and you can tell that she's wanted other things, but they've just kind of fallen by the wayside while she's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
And when she's given the opportunity to be a mother, which is something she has wanted, and just it's something that fell by the wayside, I love that this movie highlights her very obvious strengths, like the fact that she goes out into the sticks, and she's got a bow and arrow, and she'll like be very clever in how she disables like power plants and the like. But I love how we spend time in her life.
Yeah.
She's a choir director. She's really clever with like there's a great scene where she manages to get past a police roadblock in a way that's really clever, and I'm like, that's great. Like that was really smart. And I love that this movie highlights all of her strengths. You get the stuff that is going to sell a movie, but you also get the stuff that's rooted in motherhood, that's rooted in her relationship with her sister, that's rooted in her relationship with others, and ultimately, like in the wider sense, is kind of rooted in her relationship with the earth.
Something which goes along with her character is the direction. What I love is the use of visual storytelling. Like of course in these sequences where you have her like shooting arrows or like trying to destroy these power cables and like escape from like helicopters, it's really easy to use visual storytelling, but also in her life. Like it's a movie which doesn't have too many characters.
Yeah.
But they do a great job like making it so that you understand who she is, just based on the direction, based on how she interacts with the world and other characters around her. Like, we learn about her through her actions, and that's, again, with the
Yeah.
female characters, like, they do a great job in putting that together, so yeah.
And what I just realized when you said that, you never get a scene where you get her story.
No.
There's never a point where you realize, like, oh yeah, so she went to college and she did this, that's how she ended up this way. Like, no, you basically, like, you piece it together from what you see of her. I love how her apartment is arrayed.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, certain props and certain pictures and certain items around where you can sort of piece together what you think of it. And I think her relationship with her sister also reflects maybe the fact that this is something that they maybe connected with early on, but they went on two disparate paths because she's gone on a much more extreme path. Her sister is like a yoga teacher and is much more
reserved
and
wants
much
to-
more internal.
Yeah.
Like
she's searching for something, but like her
Yeah.
sister is like
Searching for
she
herself.
understands it because it's inside of her already. So.
Yeah, and then Hala needs to, like, go out into, like, the highlands of Iceland and, like, kind of go out in the world and kind of go on an adventure. So yeah, it's really interesting. Like, you mentioned the musicians, which, it's funny, I read a review that sort of honed in on this movie as a lot more comedic than I think the movie actually was.
Yeah.
But the movie is really good at being funny. Like, there are these, it's a 3-man band. Like, just kind of to give you an explanation, there's no non-diegetic sound in this movie. And basically what that means is there's no sound in the movie that does not exist in the world of the movie. So if there's music, it's playing on a radio, or in this movie's case, it's being sung by this trio of ladies who I'm assuming are dressed in, like, probably what is Icelandic, like, traditional garb.
Yeah,
And they sing these really beautiful songs.
That or Ukrainian. That was what I was thinking.
Oh, it might be. That could be a connection.
I'm not sure. I couldn't confirm that. Yeah.
And then there's a 3-man band. It's a guy on a drum,
Tuba
a little piano,
and, accordion, right?
and accordion,
Yeah.
and they will basically act as the score of the movie, but nobody notices them. They're just sort of in the background playing
Except at
music.
certain points.
And there are
Like,
certain
sometimes
points.
they notice them, sometimes they don't.
Or
and-
where they interact with the world around
Right.
them. Really funny points like that. Yeah.
But it's a really funny way to add honestly add a very unique flavor to the movie. I haven't seen a movie that really has done this outside of maybe Birdman.
Literally, that's what I was thinking. One thing, the guy, also, there's a guy who plays the piano. Like, there's tons of pianos in this movie, and he'll just, like, kind of stroll up and just start playing the piano out of context. That was literally what it was reminding me of. The opening credits were happening, and the score was very reminiscent of Birdman. Like, Antonio Sanchez, he had an original drum score. And then, like, all of a
the
sudden...
camera pans across, and then you see in the background, there's a band. You're like, wait,
Yeah,
what?
like just in this massive field, just out of context. You're like, what the hell are they doing here? And then they're through the entire movie. And
Like, they show up
no
in the
explanation.
apartment, they show up in, like, random places. They're like, this is hilarious.
And it's a really good exploration of how to use music sparingly but really effectively. Like,
Yes.
Every time the music is used, it's really good. I remember there was a scene where she's it's a scene later in the movie where she's trying another attempt at sabotage, and the music is really exciting.
Yeah.
Like, this is build and build and
like
build and build.
like the drums are used for like those suspenseful sequences, like the
Right.
soft piano and on the accordion kind of keeps like the character-driven moments. Like, there's very minimum music, just like there's very minimum character, and like that adds a little bit to the film. It's a little element in there that like kind of adds character to the film.
There's a
itself.
lot of room left to leave things up to your imagination, and there's a lot of room left, like, for the audience to interpret things on their own.
Yeah.
So, which is nice.
There is, I will say, an effect that I think we all agreed was a little off at first. It wasn't that it was a badly done effect. There's what you learn early on is that Hala has a twin sister, and the actress who plays Hala also plays her sister. And so the way they shoot the scene is the way they've shot many movies before,
Exactly.
where you
They
have
did it
two
in
characters
Social
played by the
Network,
same
yeah.
actor. And I don't think it was badly done, but it was, I think, I was paying too much attention to the effect early on. It might just be an issue with how I was engaging with the movie, but I think there was a point when it didn't bother me, when I just started to see her sister as another character, and I wasn't distracted by it as much.
Maybe they should have given her like a few more isms, like in the Social Network, like the two Winklevoss twins. They're
Right.
they're very different
Very
from each
different
other, and like you
characters,
never confuse them from each other. Like in this,
Yeah.
in this,
In
they
this,
were,
there was a lot of points where I was like, wait,
Yeah.
is that her sister?
They
or
were
is
very
that
different-
Hala?
Yeah.
they were very different people, but like maybe you could have added a few more things to like just make it so that the audience knew who everyone was during
Right.
the scene.
The best stuff I would say with her was when they had her in very different clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where she's in this like bold red outfit, and I was like, okay, that's her sister.
Exactly.
So there were ways of using her clothing where I thought that was a good way, but there were a couple scenes where it's like, who are you? Wait a minute.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
a drop distracting.
Just
but-
a little
but-
distracting, but overall it didn't take me out of the movie. Like it just was a defect that I paid too much attention to.
Yeah.
Really
Overall.
small cast.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like there's this guy who like runs a farm. Is it like
Yeah.
With and he has this dog who he literally calls woman. Like that's
Right.
the name of the dog. It's so funny. He's like, "Come, woman," and it's
Bark,
like,
woman.
Yeah, like they do a great job with him. There's only a few. Like there's this guy who's like constantly being arrested. He's like on this bike.
That
and-
was my favorite. That was like you talked about like kind of concerns about whether this movie would trip over its own message in the
Yeah.
process. I thought the way they handled this poor guy on the bicycle was a really good way to handle its message while also being really funny.
Yeah.
Because every time that she goes out and attempts sabotage against this company, this poor guy, who's always quoted in the news as being a foreign national, is arrested in her place.
He's just always in the wrong place at the wrong time. Really funny.
And
Yeah.
it happens a lot in movies I've seen where the theme goes above the characters or like above the story.
Right.
And in
Yeah.
in this case, it kept the theme like with the characters and stories and like interwove them in, so
Right.
This
was cohesive.
This is what I was talking about with Gavin. Like we were talking about like movies like this where like it's nature versus like corporations, and I said like what you can't do is you can't do furry vengeance. Do you remember Furry Vengeance?
No, what is that?
You're
You're
lucky.
lucky. You're lucky.
You're lucky.
Don't-
Is this a movie?
Brendan Fraser. It's a kids movie, but it's terrible. Like it's one of those films with like the corporation, and the thing is when
They give
the,
a face to the corporation.
That's-
which
those
makes
are the
it like,
worst ones.
I am the evil corporation.
Oh,
who wants to
when you have
yeah.
destroy
when
all
you
the
have like a
trees.
mustache twirling guy who just wants to like wipe out nature and is just
Right.
the greediest like evilest person ever. Like you can never give
Kill
a
the
face
trees.
to corporations
No.
because
Right.
it simplifies things too much, and they never do that in this movie.
No, they actually handled the corporate side of it really well.
Yeah.
There's
Like-
just this slight stuff maybe that you see on the television relating to politics, but it never feels
felt
like
it was like
anyone.
nature against the world.
Yeah.
And she does not have like a crowd backing her. There's a really
No.
funny scene where like she like throws out this manifesto and
Yeah.
there are people like retweeting it.
That was
But
funny.
But it doesn't
And the
feel,
band retweets it. The band.
but it doesn't ever feel like everyone is on her side and
No.
that like she should win. No, what she is doing is domestic terrorism, but
Right.
And it's
they-
clearly stated in the film, like, this isn't really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are consequences backing her actions, and
Yeah.
they make it so that it isn't like a this versus that. It's just this is her character and this is what she believes in, and she fights for it with tooth and nail. So
Yeah, it's people versus people.
Yeah.
Like you have the corporations who ultimately are trying to protect their bottom line, and they're ultimately really clever in how they go about combating her. Basically, like if she writes a manifesto or if she does an act of sabotage, they just go on the news and they kind of manage the narrative so that they end up looking like the good guys in the end. They're not evil or anything of that sort. They're just trying to kind of protect themselves and,
And it never
handle
felt,
things
it
in a
never
way.
felt like they were evil or anything. It just kind
No.
of felt
Yeah.
like they both have different motives.
Yeah,
weren't,
they're
trying
in
to,
conflict.
destroy the world.
They're in
just,
conflict.
They're
That's it.
businessmen.
They're in conflict.
Yeah.
And I like that, honestly, you talked about this. I really like how the movie doesn't give our hero any easy outs.
No.
Every time she has to deal with a situation, it's a challenge. She nearly gets caught several times. She has to go out and figure out ways to, like she has this recurring item, she has this recurring thing where she puts her cell phone in the refrigerator before she has like a conversation about what she actually does in her spare time. So you get the sense that she's learned to be really careful, but even with all that care, mistakes can be made, and she can be put into really dangerous situations.
Yeah, which are very fun, by the way. The
Oh,
the escape
yeah.
sequences, like there's some really entertaining stuff with how she like uses the environment
It's
around her.
really
You
neat.
know,
Like
yeah.
she's really clever, and and you get the sense that the whole time she's outmaneuvered because they're sending helicopters,
Like
dogs,
drones, yeah.
like it's madness. But
You know,
she's
I'm kinda
always
realizing
figures out a
it
way to
now.
wriggle out of the way.
Those situations, they remind me of Hunt for the Wilder People.
Just a
Where
little
they were,
bit.
like,
A
yeah.
little,
running away
yeah.
from like the organization.
Yeah.
Just a little, like
I
where
noticed that now.
it is like I would say it's a less direct like Hunt for the Wilder People in terms of like kind of its overall like tone, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is the interesting thing. I thought the movie was going to end about 15 minutes before it did.
Yeah,
Yes.
there were multiple times when I was wondering, is it going to end there?
Yeah.
There? It was kind of like, Lord of the Rings, or like, are you going to end
Right.
now? But
I don't think I'm bothered too much by it. I think
No.
the movie hits a high point
Yeah.
at a certain moment. And after that, the movie essentially is in epilogue mode.
Yeah.
I think the high point of the movie is a final scene between the sisters.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, it's just an epilogue for our hero.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how I feel about the ending. I like it. I think it's a cool shot to end on, and it's a nice note for our hero. But I would say that the emotional high for me happened about 15 minutes before the movie actually ended.
And it
I
could
agree with
possibly
that,
have just ended with her driving off toward her goal.
Right.
So it's possible.
Any negatives you guys want to point out, or
Maybe it's just me, but
We covered.
sometimes it felt a bit slow.
I'd
I feel like it could have maybe had maybe a bit faster of a pace, but that's entirely just subjective for me.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I'd
I
s-
just
I-
felt slow at some points.
I'd say there's a little bit of pacing trouble inside of the second act. Like the first and the third act are really great. There's some really great character development inside of the second act, but maybe just a little bit into the second act, it like dragged on just a drop. I was
Right.
really tired today, and that was the one point where I was kind of like,
Right.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sorry
like,
if you
yeah.
seem like
Yeah.
a little low energy.
I would
I'm pretty
definitely
tired, too.
say that there are elements from the second act I wouldn't want this movie to be without.
yes.
But I think in order for the third act to work, they drop certain characters and certain, not plot threads, but certain elements of the story to sort of hyper focus on our lead at the end. So I would say that was just one thing that struck me is when I was thinking back and I was like, oh yeah, he disappeared. That element kind of vanished. So there were elements of the story that I think were excised just so the third act could be razor focused, and I do appreciate that because I think the first act of this movie is really good. Third act of this movie is really good. Second act has some really good elements, but it is the
consistency, maybe, like,
not consistency, but it's the fatter of the two.
yeah,
And I think that the leaner this movie is, the more effective it is.
I'd agree with that one. A little more visual than that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Visually very great. I mean,
yeah.
Very good. I don't know how much this movie was made for, but it looks like a really good movie. Like
Yeah.
it sort of reminded me at times of, there were honestly a couple of scenes where I was like, is this where they shoot Game of Thrones? Like, because I think they do shoot in Iceland, and I there were a couple of scenes where I was like, I think I've seen scenes from Game of Thrones in here. But the movie that I was actually thinking of more, which I think was also shot in Iceland, was, what's that movie that oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's Ben Stiller. What's the movie that Ben Stiller made? He directed it.
Oh,
it
Secret
was-
Life of Walter
Secret
Mitty.
Life of Walter Mitty. There were scenes
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
reminded me of the cinematography in Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Obviously, Secret Life of Walter Mitty was a lot more like broad,
A lot of
like
different
more
places.
helicopter shots and
Yeah.
stuff that's a little more wide.
Like that scene when
So-
he's like longboarding on those long roads, like
Right.
I agree. So, very much like that. Like good use of the world and location that they shot at.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I like that movie.
it's a good movie.
Yeah. So I mean,
So,
it's
yeah, do you wanna
just honestly, this is a
throw out
movie that I
Grace?
just really wanted to see, and it was a movie that I was surprised how much I liked based on a poster alone. This is a movie that was made in Iceland. I would never have heard about this movie if I didn't see it at this local cinema we go to, and it was just really effective at what it did. It was, I think, when it was at its best, it was lean, it was mean, it was visually interesting, it was well performed, and it had a really great lead character that I really liked, and I was really happy with how they explored that idea in the title, Woman at War. What does that look like in the movie? And I think it's for what it is, it's really effective. So I don't know, I'd say probably a solid B for me.
All right, Kevin.
be honest, I came in with this movie like very low expectations. I was expecting it to be very derived and not very interesting, not have very good characters, not have a very well written story, but it was actually really good. Had fine writing, it was visually amazing, it had a lot of personality quirks, I guess you could call it. It was a really nice movie to see. I don't really have a lot negative to say with it. Great characters, great story. It was just overall a really nice, fun movie to watch, and I would highly suggest you guys watching it if you could find a theater nearby that's playing it. It's a great movie to see. I'd love for you guys to give it some support. So, yeah, I think I'd go about the same grade, a B. It's just a nice movie. Great time.
Yeah. It's a very simple film. Like I did not know what to expect going in, and it's a film which has a lot of heart and a lot of character in both the way it's directed and the way it's written. It can be a little bit slow-paced at certain points, but it's always to build up the characters. They do a fantastic job keeping the film with the characters, and it's shot really well, and it's just a really fun, nice, well-made movie which has a lot of spirit backing it, and I definitely think it's worth supporting. I'm going to give the same grade that we just all gave. I'm going to give it a B. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
This was just a nice movie to watch with you guys.
Just a small movie, just what the hell, Icelandic subtitled film. It's nice, yeah.
I sometimes find that like movies, I've watched a couple of like just kind of off the wall like movies that are just kind of made outside of the U.S. and
Yeah.
I've actually really liked a lot of them that I've seen.
I love watching foreign films. Like I've seen a couple that like have just blown me away. You know,
Yeah.
like Ida from Paweł Pawlikowski. I remember seeing that's a Polish movie, and I was like, holy crap, this movie's amazing. So yeah, like
Yeah, it's fun to see how like
other directors and
how a movie is made through the lens of a different culture.
yeah.
Like what's interesting about the movie like this, you can tell that there's a lot to do with the country itself, with the people. Like there's a character that even talks about like who's your family, and like it matters there because it's Iceland. Like there's going to be a much smaller number of people, so you might know a family name even if you don't know a person. So
Yeah. Nice movie.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. This is Three Brothers Movie Reviews, and please subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future.
See you guys.
See ya.